Well, I don't know. See, actually, I prefer to think about it, if you don't mind.
I want to think about it. How often have we heard those words? Now, prevention is far better than the cure, and the professional will try and prevent that ever from cropping up in his or her presentation. Those words could be so easily avoided at some stage or another by checking with the client, have we covered everything? Have we covered all aspects that you're looking for? It's so really very easy and totally natural to do. You will find out if those words are going to come up if you check correctly. Now, if done correctly, you may have to go away and research at some stage or another, because at the pre-close stage, you'll find from your client various points of interest or various points that you need to go ahead and get some more information on. When that happens, obviously, you go away and, having fixed the date for your next meeting, go ahead and carry out your research. You may have to write some letters and proposals. So let's spend a few minutes now on that particular subject. How well do your letters sell you and your company? Do they give the impression of a lively, forward-looking, friendly and successful business? Or do they convey the picture of a stuffy, old-fashioned, crabby, miserable crowd of people just waiting for the receivers to come in? Take a look at these.
Dear Mr. Jones, I acknowledge receipt of your letter of the 14th inst. Requesting details of our resistance seam can welder. Attached, please find our brochure, which I trust will provide you with the information you require. If I can be of any further assistance, please do not hesitate to contact me. Assuring you of our best attention at all times, yours sincerely.
That's terrible! A miserable Victorian company just waiting to go broke. Look at the closing paragraph again. If I can be of any further assistance, please do not hesitate to contact me. If you are absolutely certain that you want to go bust, end all your letters just like that. One can make the very simple analogy of the tennis player who serves his ball straight over into the other person's court. The receiver of the ball takes the ball and then goes off with it. That's exactly what has happened in that example. If I can be of any further service, please don't hesitate to contact me. So many of those letters either end up straight in the wastepaper basket or in a filing system somewhere, and what has happened is the letter writer has given his future in the hands of his customer, of his potential client. Don't ever do that.
Dear Mr. Jones, many thanks for your inquiry. Attached is some good news about our resistant seam can welder. It is getting excellent results and proving to be highly cost-efficient. I do hope we can meet up soon so I can tell you more about it. I will call you later this week to see how your diary is fixed. Yours sincerely.
That's so much better. Friendly, concise, and geared towards arranging the meeting that could lead to a sale. The purpose of a letter is not to sell your product, but to get you in to sell your product. Keep your letters short. They're more likely to be read if they're all on one page. Make sure the paragraphs are short as well.
Further to your esteemed inquiry, Has-Been Engineers respectfully submit this proposal for the supply of a resistance seam can welder on the basis of its many years' experience in the design of reliable, high-quality welding equipment, and in particular its expertise for innovation in the manufacture of resistance seam can welding. The new style resistance seam can welder provides Can Makers Limited with 4 main benefits. A reduction in manufacturing cost of at least 7%. A reduction in operator training costs of 10%. A pollution-free and pleasanter working environment for operators. Compliance with forthcoming legislation on lead pollution.
What distinguishes the winning proposal from the also-ran? Certainly it's not just a question of effort or research. Many a failed proposal is as a result of months of painstaking preparation. Yet so many companies will spend weeks or months assembling the reasons why their product or service is the best in the market, only to hide their unique selling points somewhere in the concluding section after pages of logical, extensively researched, but often extensively dull verbiage. Remember, the decision makers in most companies are not the people with a detailed technical knowledge. They have experts to advise them in those areas. The decision makers are usually interested in just one thing: how your product or service will benefit their company. And normally they don't have the time to spare for a hunt the benefit exercise. So put the main benefits that you can offer the client right at the beginning in your introductory section. In the main part of your proposal, it's essential to show that you have researched the client company's needs and that your recommendations are fully geared to their requirements. But again, presentation is all important. Keep it simple. Keep it as concise as possible. And always relate features to benefits.
Producing a narrow line electronic weld, which means not only a better looking can, but also 8% more space for can decoration. The seam welder is easier to use than the wing form body welder, which means reduced operator training costs.
You'll need to talk about your company to establish your suitability as a potential supplier. But remember the so what test.
Has-Been Engineering was founded in 1927 and was formed into a limited company in 1934. Specializing in wing form body molding for many years, the company has built up an enviable reputation in this highly specialized field.
So what? I haven't got time for all that.
What New Style Engineering offers Canmakers Limited? 1. Free initial training for operators. 2. Round-the-clock access to a highly qualified team of service engineers. 3. A parts replacement service located within 40 miles.
That sounds much more interesting. You see, your customer is only interested in your company insofar as it might benefit his company. So stick to the main benefits and save your full story for the appendix. Let's look and see where the price comes in. Wherever you decide to put the price, it's almost sure to be the first thing your client will look for when he reads your proposal. It's the page which is going to get the most attention. So use it to your advantage by stressing again your unique selling points and your guarantees.
Leasing facilities are also available. New Style's price includes 1. 6 months parts replacement guarantee. 2. Access to New Style's research center for free consultation.
Finally, if you want your proposal to succeed, don't leave it to close the sale all on its own. However well researched, presented and packaged, its chance of securing business are going to be slim without you there to help it through. So wherever possible, proposals should be submitted personally. If that isn't possible, always fix a firm date for a meeting to discuss it at the earliest possible opportunity. In that way, you give yourself the best possible chance to justify all your hard work and effort, and also to handle any queries that might crop up. If you follow this procedure, you will win that sale.
In the next section, Richard Denny returns to the sales presentation itself to deal with objection handling and closing the sale.
Objections to buying. Now, there are two main types. There are genuine queries, and then there are areas of mismatch. So those are the two main objections to buying. Now, there can also be a third area, and that is, of course, excuses. But that's not so often, and is certainly not so common, certainly not in the professional sales presentations. Now, let's be realistic, ladies and gentlemen. You're not going to win all the sales. So one should never become so heavenly minded with not so earthly good. So have an element of realism. Obviously, expect to win, expect to close the sales. But one must have the techniques and the confidence in handling the objection part of a presentation extremely well. First, let's run through the analysis of what should happen when a sale is lost. Now, what the professional will do, having lost the sale, he will ask himself, he will run through a self-analysis as to why didn't I close the sale? Now, if one doesn't close the sale, in most cases it is due to the salesman and his presentation or her presentation. So the professional will not blame the customer, they will look at themselves inwardly. And they run through a checklist, asking themselves these sort of questions. Did I arrive thinking negatively? Did I probe sufficiently? Did I match up correctly? Did I get too technical? Did I stress features instead of benefits? Did I close too early? At what point did I lose the sale? Now, in asking oneself those questions, one normally finds the answer. And the purpose, of course, is never to make the same mistake again. In other words, one's looking at the overall end result of how can I do it better. But do remember, most objections are an appeal. If a client or a customer raises an objection up, it is an appeal. It's an appeal for more information. And the most common objection of all, obviously, is price. Now, we as sellers know that people don't just buy price. What they're looking for is value. But they state that often as a price objection. But what really do they mean by price? In order to handle that well, we have to know what the core is. Price is almost an Apple answer, is it not? And we can't answer that until we know exactly what do they mean by price. Now, price could mean it's dearer than I thought. Or maybe it means I've actually got no money at the moment. Or on the other hand, when they say price, it means I don't really want it. It could equally mean it's outside my budget. Or perhaps what they're really saying is, I want a discount. Some people say price, and what they really do is testing you out. On the other hand, it might mean, I'm not really convinced of its value. You haven't convinced me yet. Perhaps they're saying, I'm not the decision maker, but they don't want to admit it. Or maybe they're saying, somebody else is cheaper. So with an objection, follow a three-stage sequence. First of all, ask that question back. Ask that objection back in to try and get back into the core. Exactly what do you mean by that? May I ask you, what do you mean? In relation to what? How much too much? They're all taking bites out of the apple to help you get back right down into the core, to find out the real mismatch, the real objection. Stage 2 is now to agree. Remember the saying, people buy people. So agree with your client or your prospect. If they say price and whatever it is and it's far too expensive, whatever, you don't have to agree with them, but you can equally agree with the thought that helped them to make that statement. So it's understanding the person, understand the individual, so you agree with the thought process that led them to say that. I can quite understand how you feel. I used to feel just like that. Or I quite understand how you feel. Some of my best customers used to say that until I had a chance to explain it to them. So you're agreeing with the person rather than saying, oh, that's a load of rubbish. People never like to be spoken to like that. People like to be agreed with. And then we go to stage 3, which is to outweigh. Outweigh the objection. Talk about the difference. Build value up again. Go into your USPs. And in building value up, it's so easy to stress the advantages, the benefits of your product, again, what it will do to them. In talking about the difference as far as a price objection is concerned, if you are, let's say, slightly dearer than another quotation they've had, don't keep talking about the price that you are offering, but talk about the difference between yourself and maybe the competitor's quotation that your client has already had. Let's say, for example, you are quoting £100, they say, well, we could get it for 95, so you talk about the £5 difference. That's all you have to discuss. And of course, it's very easy to outweigh on a £5 difference, is it not? Build value in, but never forget your USPs. So let's now go back to Mr. Brown and Mr. Smith.
Well, it certainly looks interesting, but I'm a bit concerned about the price.
When you say you're concerned, can I ask you exactly in what way it concerns you?
Well, you see, we've got to work to a very tight budget on training. And actually, I think it's a bit expensive.
How do you mean expensive?
Well, it's quite a lot of money for us to find.
Yes, I do understand your concern about the price. It's a point that is often raised. And I know that there has to be a limit to what any company can spend on training.
That's right. Training's a profit centre at Delamere. Every bit of expenditure has to be justified.
But I do think I can reassure you on that point, Mr. Smith. You see, this course contains only practical and proven methods. Every idea presented has been tried and tested in the marketplace. It's designed to increase sales.
Well, I don't know. You see, actually, I prefer to think about it, if you don't mind.
I want to think about it. There it is again, that line that crops up from time to time. Now, one must have a technique for handling that particular objection. Sometimes you can use this technique, but do remember, any technique doesn't work at all occasions. But this technique is very businesslike and very professional, and certainly handles this particular objection. The first stage of the technique is to agree with what the person is saying. Now, we've already looked at the importance of agreeing with what somebody says. But what the salesman does here in the process of agreeing, he says something like, I can understand that, and if I was in your shoes, I'd be saying exactly the same. But when somebody says they want to think about it, it's normally because there are a few points they're uncertain of. Would you accept that? The client or the prospect will say, yeah, sure, one or two things I'm a little bit unsure of. The salesman then says, fine, let's list them down. Let's make a list of them. Let's just have a quick look and see the points that you are a little bit uncertain of, the points that you are a little bit worried about. He takes out a sheet of paper and a pen and draws up the list. He asks his prospect the points that he is a little bit uncertain about. He says, let's just jot these down and have a look at them. And he compiles all the list of the queries and the objections that that client or that prospect may have at that stage. Businesslike, professional, totally in control, back in control of the presentation. He then moves now to stage 3 of the technique, whereby he checks and pre-closes. What he does is this. He asks his client, he says, now, we've got down 5 points. Is there anything else that you may be a little bit unsure of? So he is checking. Is there anything else? He's got it all out of the open. Is there any other worries you may have? Looking at his paper, if his client says, no, that's all, he now pre-closes. And he says, if I am able to answer these points, are you then in a position to proceed? If the client says no, he's not in a position to proceed, the salesman then says, well, there must be 1 or 2 other points we haven't looked at. So again, he draws them out. But in most cases, because he's got those 5 or 6 points down on a sheet of paper, the prospect is thinking, well, he's not going to be able to answer them all, so he's bound to want to say, yes, sure, let's go ahead. But equally, he is saying to himself, well, if you can answer them, of course I want to proceed. Of course I want to, because then you will have convinced me. So it's so professional, it's so businesslike. And then finally, into stage 4, and that is to answer those points. What we are doing through this technique is helping to make the customer make up their mind. Do you remember earlier on we said the salesman is a mind maker-upper? And this is all he's doing. He's helping the customer to come to a logical conclusion. Businesslike, professional, soft selling, ladies and gentlemen, not hard selling, but so professional.
See, actually, I prefer to think about it, if you don't mind.
Yes, I can understand that you need to be absolutely certain before making a purchase. Normally, when somebody says that, it's because there are 1 or 2 things they're a little uncertain of. Would you agree?
Yes, that's right.
Could we just jot those down and have a quick look at them?
Fine.
And what's your first worry?
Well, I'm obviously concerned about your price.
Price. Fine. And any other points?
Yes, I think I'm also a bit worried whether your course is really going to produce the results that you claim it is.
Results. Yes. Any other points?
Yes. Do you have any sort of guarantee?
Guarantee. Is there anything else, Mr. Smith?
No, that's all.
Fine. Mr. Smith, if I were able to satisfy you on these points that you've raised, do you feel that you would be in a position to proceed?
Yes, I suppose I would, if you can do that.
Can I talk first about the price? Yes, I do understand that it's extra money to find, but this course gets results and increases sales. And if it only closed 1 or 2 sales that might otherwise be lost, it is instantly paid for. Would you agree?
Looking at it from that point of view, yes, I think I accept that.
Could we say that point's covered?
Yes, all right.
Now your second point, does it get results? Mr. Smith, let me show you some of the letters we've received from other companies about the impact of this course. Does that reassure you?
Yes, it's quite impressive.
Are you satisfied on that point?
I think I am.
Now the guarantee. Yes, the course is fully guaranteed. Let me tell you how it works.
And finally, the order comes so naturally. It's no great big deal to close a sale off. I understand there's something like 100 ways to close a sale. I'm certainly not going through 100 ways to close a sale. What I will do is just look at 4 ways of closing a presentation off. 4 very natural, very matter-of-fact, very easy ways to draw your business transaction to a complete conclusion. First of all, ask for the order. So simple. Just ask for it. Fine, thank you so much. When can we proceed? Just ask for the order. Straight out with it. Decency and honesty and just matter of fact. Secondly, the second form of close is the alternative close. We've looked at that earlier on. This is where you ask your prospect, would you like delivery this week or next week? So the decision is not whether they're going to proceed, the decision is on the point of delivery. Matter of fact and businesslike. Thirdly, the minor point close. Now, the minor point close is where you're asking the decision to be made on some minor point. Would you like the red or the green? We would say, would you like the VHS or the Betamax? Such a soft close. So easy. And finally, the fourth close we're going to look at is the special offer close. And this may not apply. We would say, if you order 5, we will give you the 6th one completely free of charge. So you have a special offer to draw the transaction in. And that's a very good close if you do have a special offer running. So those are 4 straightforward closes. No big deal. Professional and very, very simple.
Good. We've covered all the points. So now it's just a question of deciding how many courses you need. Will one for each sales manager and one for you be sufficient? Good. We've covered all the points. Can I proceed with the order? Good. We've covered all the points. Will you want the VHS or the Betamax version? One for each of your sales managers and one for you. Of course, if you'd like to order 6, we supply an additional course free of charge.
Let's just talk about a few of the mistakes that salesmen make. Firstly, never find fault with what a customer is doing. Now, that's a mistake that people make. They find fault. They criticize at some stage of a meeting. They say, well, I'm surprised you're still using this model. Now, that's a direct criticism and will never get a sale off to a good footing. So, be wary. Never find fault with what a customer is doing. Another mistake they make is never talk down to people. So many salespeople, because of their product knowledge or experience, they are inclined to talk down. They make the prospective purchaser feel a little bit insignificant. If you are saying something that your client may not be aware of or hasn't heard of before, don't appear to them, put them in the position that they are not sufficiently knowledgeable enough. You can say something like, I'm sure you've heard of this before. I'm sure you are aware. That way you build people up as against putting them down, making them feel small. Thirdly, don't be over-familiar. A common mistake that, isn't it? Being over-familiar with people. You know, trying to use their Christian name too early before you've been invited. Never be over-familiar. Keep the barriers up. Always call yourself by your first name or second name. Address your clients as Mr. until at some stage you are invited to do otherwise. Fourthly, don't fear the competition. We've talked about that. But so many salespeople get hung up over the competition. Fifthly, don't let your customer down. Whenever a salesman lets somebody down, it is setting them off in the track of looking for business from a competitor. If you're promising a letter that's got to go out at a certain time, get that letter off. If you're promising a delivery date, do everything you can to meet that. If you can't meet it, of course, phone them up and tell them. But don't let people down. And finally, number 6, don't forget buyer's remorse. Now, buyer's remorse, we've all experienced buyer's remorse at some stage or other. You've gone, let's say, to a shop to purchase a suit or a dress. On your way home, you suddenly feel, should I have bought that? Perhaps I could have bought better. Maybe the next day you're thinking back through, I spent rather a lot of money, I shouldn't really have done this at this stage. That's buyer's remorse. And most people who buy go through a stage of that at some stage or other. Understand how your prospects feel. If you've sold a very large chunk of machinery or a big decision has been made, understand how that prospect may be feeling. They may be questioning their decision. They may be a little bit uncertain. Perhaps they have to justify that decision to one or two other people. So possibly the next day, and tell them that you'll phone them the next day to have a brief chat, one or two other points they may be able to discuss with or to reassure or confirm. But understand how people are feeling. Don't let a sale be lost and a decision backtracked on just because of buyer's remorse. This is a success course for winners. Now, during the whole of these 6 programs, we've been looking at ideas for achievement of success. Now, we want to satisfy everybody. We know that perhaps not everybody here is certain they want to be successful. There may be 1 or 2 people in the audience who say, I'm not interested in all this stuff about being successful. What I want to do is I want to know how to fail. So for the next 10 minutes, we're going to just have a quick look at 1 or 2 ideas on how to fail. Now, if you want to fail, you don't want to spend years doing it, do you? Of course not. You want to fail fast. So what we're going to do now is just run through 1 or 2 ideas, in fact 10 ideas on how to fail fast. So you're all ready. The first idea is this: you must be negative. You must expect to fail. You've got to permanently in your mind here, I know I'm going to fail. Be as miserable as you can with everybody you meet, because you're miserable with people, they'll be miserable back. That helps you to get the right feeling. In expecting to fail, be totally unenthusiastic. Make your home life a complete and utter shambles. Because if your home life's a shambles, your business life will be a shambles as well. That's excellent. Secondly, listen to opinions. Now, you've got to listen to opinions from people who've never actually done anything in their life. And whatever they say, do. You know, if you're unsure about a particular business procedure, find the poorest salesman in your company, the one who never actually sells anything. Ask him what he would do, and whatever he says, do it, because you'll never sell anything. If you've got a really good idea, you're excited about it, go down to your local pub and discuss it with everybody on the side of the bar, because they'll pull it to pieces, they'll destroy it. Now, that's marvelous, because you'll never proceed with that good idea. Thirdly, make sure you have no goal. No objective. You know the saying, a person going nowhere normally gets there. Now that's right, that's the position you want to be in. You want to have no goal, no purpose whatsoever. When you wake up in the morning, you know it's another day, you're surprised it's arrived, you'll get rid of it as quickly as possible, but no objective whatsoever in life. Now supposing, and sadly, you might find a goal. You know, one day you might be going down a high street somewhere, you see something in one of the shops that you really like. I know that's horrific, I know, but it might happen. If it were to happen, and you see something you want to achieve or get, make sure you have no plan. Because without any plan, you'll never get that goal. You'll be completely and totally safe. And now, fifthly, always criticize, find fault, pull down ideas that your colleagues have. Find fault with your customers. Continually find fault with everybody. Be unenthusiastic. Say things like, oh, that won't work. Now, that's great because you'll be surrounded by people who are really negative. And you know what happens then? If you're surrounded by people who are negative, you'll be negative as well. That's marvelous. Number 6, never be truthful. Bend the truth. Make promises you can't possibly keep. You know, if a customer says, well, you wouldn't have any customers, but somebody might give you a customer. If a customer were to say to you, when can you make delivery? Promise them on a date when you know you can't possibly meet it by, because then they get really, really upset. They'll never want to do business with you again. They'll certainly never trust you. Fib to your sales manager. If your sales manager, how many sales have you done this week? Fib to him. That can completely throw him off course. It'll mess up all his record systems. He'll want to get rid of you. You're on your way. Number 7, continually say, why should I work any harder for the money I get? Now that's wonderful, because you'll then never ever get promoted. You'll stay in that position, you can stagnate, but you'll never ever get promoted in life. And eventually you'll be able to be moved on somewhere else. Continually say, why change it? That's the way it's always been done, because that stagnates the mind. And number 8, procrastinate. Don't do it now. Put it off. If ever you find there's something really important to do, don't do it. The letter that's got to be got off, don't do it. There's a proposal that's all been got together and you work for 2 or 3 months. Now, you wouldn't have worked, but other people may have worked on the proposal, but it's your job to get it back to the client. Don't get it back. Cold calling to set up some appointments. Put them off till after 5:30 when there's nobody around to answer the telephone. Procrastinate. Number 9, avoid positive people. Don't meet up with people who are really positive. You know, if you know colleagues and friends who are really enthusiastic, avoid them. You see somebody down a street one day coming towards you, you know he's the really sort of enthusiastic individual, get on the other side of the road. You might hit something, but avoid him. Whatever you do not mix with positive people. For example, this particular whole course, whatever you do, never take these programs out. Put them away in a safe somewhere. Hide them on a shelf. Let the dust collect on them. But never, ever watch and listen to these programs again because it's a positive environment. And finally, number 10, quit at every opportunity. You know, you might be halfway in to see a client. That possibly is unlikely, but you might be. Decide then not to proceed with your presentation. Go off and do something else. Go and have a round of golf. Go and have a cup of coffee. Quit whenever you can. Quit at every opportunity. Okay, 10 points, fun points. But in all seriousness, they are very realistic. If you ever find yourself carrying out one of those steps, they are a step towards failure. And failure is a horrific word. It's one of the most negative words in the whole language. But I'm going to suggest to you, ladies and gentlemen, that nobody fails at anything until such time that they actually give up. People can say to you, how long are you going to go on calling on that customer? Your reply should be, until. Deep down, solid persistence. Failure cannot live with persistence. There's a lovely story that makes this point so well. It relates to the great inventor, Edison. He was trying to find a replacement for the gas mantle. And in his search, he tried a number of ways and he wasn't succeeding, but he carried on persisting. But people started to question his sense in proceeding. And they started to give him a nickname. They called him Nutty Tom. And he got up to 200 and 300 and 400 ways. He finally got up to 700 ways. And they said, Tom, why are you going on doing this? You failed 700 times. Why are you carrying on? He said, no, I haven't failed 700 times. I've just found 700 ways it doesn't work. And as I understand it, he discovered the light bulb at something like his 1000th attempt. He persisted right until the end. And that has to be a quality for all of us in sales, persistence. Keep right in there. Ladies and gentlemen, good luck and great success.